Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross, and I'm here with Brian Smith, Senior Global Mobility Consultant at Change Healthcare. How are you doing, Brian?
Hey, I'm doing good, Ben. Thanks again for having me on.
Well, thanks for always popping in too. You've been such a great, viewer and part of the community. Always popping in when leaving your 2 cents in the comments too, which is so appreciated. And if you're out there watching right now, please leave your 2 cents in the comments. I want to know who you are. I want to know where you're at. Give your company a shout out. Give somebody else a shout out. If there's somebody you appreciate that did something really cool today or this week, give them a shout out. Spread some love around there. Throw a little love out to Brian as well. Yeah, hit that little heart or that little green applause button or whatever. Get that going. Let's see who's out there. This is great. Brian, where in the world are you today?
So I am in Chicagoland, but I'm about an hour west of Chicago, kind of in the rural area. I live in a small little town called Hinckley, Illinois, with a 2,500 people population. And just a little tidbit about Hinckley, Illinois. The Globetrotters was the very first game they ever played in 1927 was the Globetrotters, and they played in Hinckley, Illinois. I'll shoot a picture for everyone to see it after we're done.
Nice. That's great. So is that where the Globetrotters are founded?
No, they were actually founded in Chicago. So
they're
the north
founded
side.
in Chicago and said, you know, it'd be cool if we went to Hinckley and played the game.
Well, you have to remember the time. So it was in the 1920s. Okay. So an all-black American team was not exactly had a lot of places to play at that time. So
no, that's fair.
That's fair. Them. Yeah.
So the Harlem Globetrotters were actually founded in Chicago?
Yes, they were founded in Chicago. I'm almost positive. If I'm wrong, I'm going to double check myself.
Yeah, that blows my mind. I love it. This is great. We got people checking in. If you've ever been to a Globetrotters game, let me know. If they weren't playing the Washington, what are they, the Senators or whatever?
Yeah.
The team that they perpetually beat the crap out of. Throw that in the comments, 2 extra points for that. Let's see here. Great factoid. I hope So I grew up in New York. I'm a basketball fan. Shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks, by the way, clinching the chip, and all my.
I'm a Bulls fan, but I can get behind the Bucks this year.
yeah. Show a little love to that Midwestern team. We got Robert checking in. Hey, Ben and Brian. I think Robert's out there in Tennessee. What's up, Robert? Tim Quirk, Western New York in the house. What's up, Tim? It's good to see Tim there. Drew Phillips. Hello, gentlemen. Good afternoon. Drew is never short on the enthusiasm. We appreciate the punctuation here on Love and Relo. Cartwright Companies. Hi there. It's Aaron Venable with Cartwright Relocation Services. Cartwright Companies. Happy to be here. What's up, Aaron? Appreciate you shouting out your company. Say hey to Andy out there. Elisa. Hi, everyone. Well, hello to you, Elisa. And if you see anybody you know also, Brian, feel free to give them a shout out here.
Yeah.
We got look at Ruby's in the house. Fantastic. Ruby, are you in San Diego? Did I get that right? Alan King from Germany. What's up, Alan? Nice. Is that our first international today? Let's see here. We got Sandra checking in. Looking forward to today's show.
We would be related. All right. Hinckley, Illinois, Hinckley, California. It's all relative, right?
Yeah, that's how DNA works. Let's do it. Sandra. Is there like okay, since we're gonna just go down the rabbit hole of Hinckley trivia. Is it named after a person? Is this the same person in California? Do we know anything about Hinckley?
You're really gonna get me on Google this quickly. If everyone wants to follow, I'll post some Hinckley trivia afterwards.
Thank you.
Make sure that my story is straight.
Thank you. This is great. And then, I have one last question about Hinckley. You say you're from Chicagoland, but you're in Hinckley, population like a Sonic drive-in.
Yeah.
What is the border of Chicagoland? Like, how do we, like, when does it just become Illinois?
Okay, so, and it's interesting. I mean, if you look at it in a way of like how San Francisco is set up, right? It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah. Fair.
So Chicago is like that for about 45 minutes. I would say maybe 35 to 40 miles. And I know there's a few that might correct me on here, but really the last true suburb of Chicago is called Aurora, Illinois. I can get into factoids all day about Aurora, Illinois, but and then after that it stops, and I'm about 20 to 25 minutes past Aurora, Illinois.
Okay.
So all west, directly west. But I mean, you know, you got to look at Chicago on a map. We go all the way in the suburbs, all the way to the border of Wisconsin almost, all the way down to the border of Indiana, down Lake Michigan. So it's, you know, I was born and raised here. Well, technically I was born in Ohio, but I lived there for about a whole 6 months, and then I moved to Chicago, and we've lived here ever since. But
yeah, I want to get into your journey. I want to get into kind of how you came up. I want to also take questions from the audience. So if you're out there right now and you got questions for Brian, we're going to be talking about, you know, global mobility policies. We're going to talk about kind of what types of policies there are, why, you know, he chooses the policies he chooses, and we'll kind of go around some of that. Any questions you have out there would be awesome. We got Michael Quigley. Let's give a couple more shout outs before we get started here. Jamie Master checking in. What's up, Jamie? Let's see. Jana checking in from Rio. We got South America. We've got Europe so far. Candy. I've seen the Globetrotters. It was awesome and so fun and entertaining. They come to Huntsville, Alabama nearly every year. Glad we get to share that experience with our kids. Yeah. Lizzie Beats checking in from Chi City. The Bulls.
Go Bulls. If anyone can see my painted picture behind me, that's Michigan Avenue in Chicago. So
nice.
I don't know how big it is, but yeah, I love my city. I love my city.
That's great. We got B Moore in the house. Lisa Ross from San Diego. Everybody's checking in here. This is great. Got Lakers fans. Look at all the Lakers fans. The Knicks fans are coming out of the woodwork. That's funny. Knicks fan. That's tough. I grew up a Knicks fan, and your Bulls would just eviscerate us. The Pacers would beat up on us. We made it to the finals a couple years, but we just couldn't do it. Just could not do it.
Patrick Ewing, man.
Ewing. I mean, he was great. You know, I mean, Ewing, Starks, Mason, Oakley, Charles Smith. I mean, Hubert Davis. I mean, I was a fan.
All right. Go, Ben.
Look at this. Look at this. This is great. We got shout out people loving the background. Yeah, that's me. That's Jana right there. Our little Glomo there going on. Aaron Brockovich. Shout outs. I don't even know. Is Aaron Brockovich from Hinckley? I don't know this is great. Anyway, we got a lot going on here today. Let's hop into it here. So tell us a little bit about kind of your journey in global mobility, Brian, and how you got into the biz.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I would say it was about 6 years ago. Never even knew what relocation was. I was a real estate agent in Denver for a few years before that.
So you had a real estate background. So you did have some components of it. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's what kind of helped me, honestly, when I moved over. So I started, anyway, I basically applied for 3 jobs in January 1st of 2016. I like real estate. I still do it. I have my license here in Illinois, but I will say it is feast or famine. So you could have 6 closings in 1 month and you are the richest man in the world. And then you don't got nothing for 6 more months after that and you are poor. So yeah, I needed something a little bit, something a little bit more stable. And so I applied at a property management company. I applied at a new home builder, and I applied at Grable. If anyone has ever heard of Grable, I think
sure. Bill Grable, friend of the program,
go through Grable, right?
Yeah, for sure. Great company.
Yeah, awesome company. So the property management interview was one of the worst interviews I've ever had. The guy was actually doing work and taking calls while we were in interview, so that was a pass.
Yeah, well, of course, he's like, that's why I need you, Brian. I'm over here taking these calls. I need you.
Apparently, I think I may have even made a mention of that. Like, apparently, you really need some help. But
yeah, that's great.
The home builder never called me back, and Grable called me back. And 2 weeks later, I had an offer, and I started, I think, a week and a half after that. And started off as a renter consultant, quickly moved over to a home sale consultant, I think mostly because of the real estate background. And then from there, I worked on international. And
so before we get into that, I just want to ask real quick while I'm thinking about it. You had this residential real estate background, and then you came in. How is relocation home sale real estate different than the real estate experience you had had before?
Oh, well, I mean, it's extremely different from a consultant side versus an agent side, right? So, from a consultant side, what was good and what the benefit I was able to bring to my company was the fact that I knew contracts. I knew the real estate. I knew kind of the way that it's set up. I knew how to position it. So, when we were doing BVOs and GBOs and things like that, very, very different. But, I was able to at least bring that knowledge while I still let the agent and the title company do everything. I was still able to follow it along and really kind of keep people on task. And I think that really benefited both me in my position, but also, Grable at the time as well.
When you look back on your real estate days, did you even know about relocation, or was it something you'd heard about but didn't really know how it worked? Nothing.
Zero. Honestly, I didn't even know what a renter consultant at Grable job posting was. I just saw something that said, if you have a real estate background, we're interested in you. So I did it, and I applied for it. And I mean, it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Wow. Wow. Now, was that because of the things you learned, or why would you say it's one of the best decisions you made?
So if anyone looks at my LinkedIn, I've worn a lot of hats over the years. I've been an account manager. I've been a restaurant manager. I've been a call center manager. I've been on the road with bands all over the world. So I have this pedigree of all these different jobs, and they were all great jobs. I loved them all. But after being in mobility for, like, say, the last 3 or 4 years, it's really niche. It's really the customer service approach that I like to take, the duty of care that I like to take with all of my internal customers. And so, I mean, I made a decision. I think when I moved to Chicago and took a job, that was with Weichert at the time, took a job with Weichert, I decided that I think I'm going to make my final career. I'm not going anywhere else or doing anything else. Right. This is it. So
you went from rental consultant at Grable to home sale consultant. Yep. And then what was that opportunity to go to Weichert?
So I was an international consultant as well with Grable.
Oh, right.
I think it was a few months into renter. I think it was about 2 years in home sale and about another year and a half on the international side.
Well, I want to understand this a little bit better too, Brian, because I'm sorry, I got so many questions here. That's so interesting to me, because I've never actually worked for an RMC. I've worked with a lot of RMCs, but I've never actually worked for an RMC. Explain to me the difference now between a home sale consultant and international consultant.
Okay, so a home sale consultant, a lot of times you are dealing strictly with a buyer value option or a guaranteed buyout on a home sale that the client's employee has to sell. So the client says, we're going to support the sale of this home. So we'll go ahead and, of course, cost estimates and all that. But ultimately, the home sale consultant handles strictly homes that are being sold by the employee.
And do they do other aspects of the relocation, or do they just handle home sales? Sure.
Like one of the, I was on a big client. I was on a couple big clients, but one of that was on with the home sale. If they didn't have a home to sell, I would help them get out of their rental and move into get relocated. So in essence, I still was a renter consultant, but I did mostly home sales.
Were you touching household goods? Were you touching other aspects in DSP and all that other aspects of, okay.
More of the authorization or the service orders to those people. So like each individual company like Grable, they have their own department for the move management. But I work directly with them, and sometimes I would get involved with the move partners, our contractors directly if needed. But a lot of times Grable has a great department when it comes to the household goods. Their move department is spot on.
Right. Because some RMCs, the consultant actually handles like each kind of service vertical, and some RMCs, especially the bigger ones, kind of specialize, right? And they have the move
Yes.
team and they have the corporate housing team and
Yes.
so on and so
Yes.
forth. Okay.
So
And if you're getting
really
involved, I imagine that means it's probably not going well, right? Because then you're like, hey, what's going on with this?
I mean, do we want to tell stories?
Yeah, we want to tell stories. We got an hour. Let's tell some stories.
Oh man, well, we won't say names, but I had one guy that it was a hot summer, and he was going California, I think, to Ohio or something. So the household goods, we were just backed. Well, he was always a guy that was getting promoted all over, and I actually had the guy 3 different times. And he would get promoted, and he would literally be in his new job over the weekend, and he wanted his household goods delivered, picked up and delivered, in California on Friday and delivered no later than that Monday.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So I didn't even have to say anything else, right? And that happened over and over again. And the manager at the time with Grable, we became really close just because of this gentleman.
We became really close. That means you're in a foxhole together, taking fire. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's great. That's awesome. So then you're doing that. So then moving into the international consultant, and this is really fascinating to me because I'm always, I've partnered with a lot of RMCs, but understanding the inner workings and the processes are really, really interesting to me. So if you don't mind indulging me just for a moment, and if you have questions, if you're watching right now, this goes out to the audience right now. If you're watching right now and you have questions for Brian about processes or anything about his experience or policies or anything, please go ahead and leave those in there. We will prioritize your questions as well. We've got people checking in here. It looks like Valerie McKenzie, Scott Williamson. This is great. Darlene checking in from PC Housing in Tampa. This is awesome. So tell me about so now compare that to the international consultant and what the international consultant does.
Yeah, so the international consultant, we still deal with a lot of the same things, but now we're getting more into a level of immigration. We're getting into more of a level of different tax implications from country to country, reporting. For me personally, I am like a sponge when it comes to information. So I get a little itchy when I'm ready to learn something new, right? So, I did the renter consultant, I did the home sale, and really the next thing for me is I wanted to learn the international side. And at the time, everyone, was like, oh, that's really, you want to go from home sale to the internet? It was almost like I thought it felt like a backward step, but in honesty, it was the greatest step I could have ever made just because of all of the experience and knowledge that comes along with it from the international side.
Do you feel like there's a negative connotation or perception around the international versus like maybe being a home sale consultant? I mean, you were talking a little bit about the perception there, and I was just curious.
I think it was more because if you're international, you're international. If you're domestic, you're domestic. And what I see, honestly, in a lot of the relocation pieces is, that's where people are. That's where they stay. I know domestic. I know home sale. I'm staying right here, Yeah. And of course, there's people that want to branch out and do other things. And of course, there always is. You don't have to go to international, to feel like you're going to be in the next, level. But it was just for me personally, I wanted to see that side of it, that side of the business. I felt like I had gotten the whole domestic thing under my belt. And then, I had to do the international.
That makes a lot of sense to me because, it's that way in like household goods too. If you're an international mover or you're a domestic mover, those two worlds are totally different, totally separate, and they don't cross over. And, it's funny, you mentioned you were in call centers. I was in call centers also. That's how I started my career, right? And when I was in call centers, I felt very much pigeonholed as being a call center guy. And like it was hard to break out into other parts of the organization, right? And it was really hard for me to do that. So I totally get what you're saying about the lanes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me, so let's play this forward here a little bit here. So going to Weichert, what was that opportunity for you, Brian?
So Weichert, I got a call from a recruiter out of the blue. As a matter of fact, I was getting new brakes put on my car, and I was sitting at the Big O Tire waiting for my brakes, and I get this call from New Jersey, and I don't recognize it. I usually don't take New Jersey calls.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with New Jersey.
Hey, I don't take New Jersey calls. Not that there's anything wrong with New Jersey, and scene. Hopefully Brian comes back in here as he just leaves on there's nothing wrong with New Jersey. By the way, great segue into New Jersey. We will be in New Jersey the next Love and Relo show with our friend Jack Jampel. And there's Brian Smith. Nothing wrong with New Jersey, and I'm out.
Yeah. So where I was, and I don't know what happened.
You got a call from New Jersey. You're sitting at the Big O
call
Tire.
from New Jersey. Had to take it. No, so I got this call, and it was a recruiter telling me about this international assignment management position with Weichert in Chicago. I really wasn't looking for anything at the time, but it just happened to be the right position. I had been wanting, my kids were all grown up, and I wanted to kind of get back to Chicago, spend time with my family that I hadn't spent time with in 25 years. So I took the job and I moved back here. So, and another great opportunity. I learned so much more detail of the immigration piece, more additional tax information. So yeah, it was another good decision.
And I'm sorry, what was that role at the time?
It was called an international assignment manager or assignment counselor. So I worked mostly all of my clients were overseas. So I do people from the UK to India, India to Brazil, Brazil to Portugal, Philippines, anything like that. So we did quite a bit, a pretty broad global spectrum.
Yeah, that's a lot of experience. That's really interesting. We got some questions coming in here. Keep those questions coming. If you've got questions, I'd love to hear them. We've got one from Valerie McKenzie. Val says, I am curious, what is the main thing that you use today in your programming that you learned from your time with an RMC? She offers some suggestions like communication, education, expectations. What are you so grateful you learned from the RMC side that you carried to your role now? Great question, Valerie.
That is a good question. Give me a few minutes. I'll be right back.
Hey, no problem. Just take a break, log off. That's fine.
I'll talk about New Jersey and then I'll blaze out, right? No, actually, that's a really good question. One of the things that I learned with the transferees in the RMC is when they send you an email, they don't want to reply in a day or two. They really kind of want to reply that pretty quickly, right? And even if you don't have the answer, I always found it was good just to reply to acknowledge that I'm looking up the answer. And so I bring that forth now because, I deal with a lot more internal people, but it's the same thing. If someone sends you an email, in my opinion, if someone sends me an email, if I'm able to get a reply back almost immediately, they're still sitting on their email thinking of that thought. If I let it go overnight, I've lost possibly, a good dialogue or however you want to call it, but I don't want to wait and lose things in translation as we're, as the next day I don't remember it or, things like that. So I think my response times are critical in everything that I do.
I think that's such great advice. And especially for service providers out there, Valerie and a lot of folks who are watching might be service providers. That's a great piece of advice, because what I found is when you don't respond immediately, to your point, they're thinking about it now and they really want to bring it to a resolution, and they're going to give it like 10, 15 minutes, and then they're going to start tapping their foot and they're like, should I escalate this? Should I go to another person for an answer? And then all of a sudden, and Valerie, I'm sure you've had this happen, right? And anybody that's watching, you probably sympathize with this. That person, then that transferee or that RMC or that whomever is your customer, and now is saying, okay, let me go here. Let me go to Valerie. Let me go to Barb. Let me go to Chris. Let me go to, and then all of a sudden you hear the same request from like multiple people. And then you have to let multiple people know that you're already on it, that you've already addressed it. Well, then why did I get that question? Well, because I was just waiting to, and it creates this echo chamber of escalation, echo chamber.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
then it's just out of control.
And to that point also, Ben, I mean, what you said is absolutely correct. And, really, being on this side of it now, so being on the corporate side, if I'm looking for an answer, I'm not usually going to the consultant. Now I go to the manager. So if one of my employees or one of Change Healthcare employees sends an email to our vendor, they don't get back to them, then sends me an email. My first response is I'm sending an email, but now I'm sending it to the manager, and then the manager is sending it to the consultant. So now, because we couldn't, my opinion, couldn't give a 30-second quick response that, hey, I don't know, but I'll be back with you in a minute or tomorrow or whatever, it stops that 7 emails in its tracks.
Yeah, you know what? And let's see here. Ruby's got a comment here, and keep these comments and questions coming. If you hear something that raises an eyebrow or something, if you agree or disagree or whatever, throw it in the comments. I'd love to get the conversation going. Yeah. Ruby says, huge believer in response time. Even just a quick, simple reply goes a long way, in my opinion. I love this distinction in response. You key in on responsiveness. Sometimes people say communication is key. I personally hate the word communication because it's so broad that it doesn't actually communicate to me exactly. What about it? Is it how articulate you are? Is it how fast you are in responding? Is it how thorough and detail oriented you are? Is it the frequency of communication? Every hour I'm giving you a status update. Mm-hmm. What is it about communication that's so key? I think that's really important. So let me ask you, Brian, what is it for you in your experience? What aspect of communication is super key for service providers and vendors?
So in addition to putting out a response, I love what Ruby said. Huge believer in response time. Even just a quick, simple reply goes such a long way. And it's so right about that. But there's also a level of moment of truth. So I couple that with what I've said this for my whole career and all my different jobs. Moments of truth. Moments of truth is when you come to that person and you give them the truth. Meaning, I don't know the answer. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But
that's hard to say. I don't know what you're talking about. When you come to me and your hair is on fire and I'm like, didn't notice your hair is on fire. News to me, sir. It does seem urgent. Let me find out about that hair fire situation.
Yeah. But with the moments of truth, it's, I really don't know the answer to that. I have that weekly, I still learn in this position. And if I go to my manager and she comes to me or he comes to me and says, one thing and I don't know it, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. But the reason why I'm telling you I don't know is so that you know that I'm going out to find out for you. So
how do you get comfortable? How do you get comfortable saying, I don't know?
You got to say it. That's the only way. Here's the thing. If you are afraid to tell the truth, it's so weird to say it like that, right? To tell the truth, but we catch ourselves, right? Well, I don't want to say anything to this guy because this is just going to blow it up. And then his wife's going to find out. And then, and then she's going to be calling me. And, so the moment of truth is, I found when you're more truthful and upfront, people give you a lot more respect and understanding than if you try to avoid them or not give them the full answer, because it's always going to come back to you. It's always going to come back.
This is you're so right. And I feel like this conversation, this isn't exactly what we set forth to talk about, but I feel like right now in the middle of July and probably the hairiest peak season we've dealt with in years. I feel like this is a conversation that people need to hear about that moment of truth and how to have those hard conversations. Because you're right. If you start blowing smoke at people and covering things up, and they get an inclination that you're covering things up, then their job just becomes to find out what you're lying about. And then you don't want to have that dynamic where you have a person and now it's an adversarial relationship where they're expecting everything you say, and there's no trust there. So you're right. I remember the first time I found out it was okay to say, I don't know. I was like 28 and I'm going to monologue for a moment here. I was 28 and I was working at Pods actually, and I was reporting into the CEO on a daily basis with our status updates because I was running this really high visibility. I mean, I was managing all their long distance moves. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars of business. And so every day was like a big deal. A day was a week was a month was a year. And hey, Brian.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I am in the country.
No worries. It's all good. It's all good. So anyway, so I'd go in and I'd report to the CEO and I'd give him how do we do yesterday? And I would sit there and I was a manager of like 28 and I'm sitting next to this senior vice president who was many levels above me in both compensation and rank. And then we're sitting across from the CEO and I would be over there like, trying to work through some answers. And he would just sit there cool as a cucumber. Like, I don't know, Tom. I don't know. And I'm looking at him like, I did not know you could say, I don't know
to the CEO.
Right? And he would do it like every morning. Well, I don't know.
You know what's great about that? About saying no to the CEO, they actually have more respect for you because they don't want a bunch of people. Honestly, they don't want people just telling them yes all the time. I've worked directly with a number of CEOs. As a matter of fact, when I was with Grable, I moved the CEO of this company. With Change Healthcare at the time. And so they just want you. I'm reading the comment from Erin and she says, right, you have to be honest. Better to be authentic than fake because it builds trust. A CEO has been through this. You can't blow smoke to them because they know, so it comes down to it. Don't be afraid to tell your kid no, your transferee no, and your CEO no. Just be careful.
Either go really amazing or it could be the end of the world. So just go for it and let us know in the comments what happens. That's great. No, that's fantastic, Brian. So you've talked about kind of the move to Change Healthcare. Yeah. So how did that come about? Because I'll be honest with you, when I talk to my friends on the service provider side, or even my corporate friends, especially if they're like between opportunities or what have you. And there's a fair amount of folks who are like that. It's a really weird economy out there right now. That corporate mobility person, that job that you have, that corporate mobility, that is a very in demand role. Everybody wants to be sitting in that seat, it seems like. So how do you make that? How did you make that jump? I think everybody'd like to know that.
Yeah. I think the jump comes from, again, so the manager who hired me here at Change Healthcare, I worked with, she was the manager when I worked with Grable on the international side. We became, I think I demonstrated a ton of moments of truth with her. I mean, our guy was moving from Canada to San Francisco to Boston. He's the chief operations guy, so there was a lot going on with his file and his, and it was a big file. And
it's a big file. Yeah.
I mean, I think we stopped doing paper years ago, but it probably would be something like this, and that's from the floor, not my desk.
Yeah.
But I developed a relationship with her. And I had always said, if there's anything that comes up in a role, my next step is really to move to a global mobility role. And so a position came up. It wasn't the most ideal time because I was already working with another company. But I knew that was my next direct role. And so, as unfortunate as it is, that was where I wanted to be and where I want to be. And so I did have to take it. And it was unfortunate. It was some tough conversations that, a little over a year ago. But
I mean, it was what
some
you
of
wanted.
them might be watching, so just know that I still love you guys over there.
Yeah, the opportunity presented itself, though. But I mean, I think my takeaway from what you just said there is to always be networking. And to let folks know what your dreams are and what your intentions are and kind of what you feel like your career path is, like what your purpose is and your destiny is. so that they can look out for you and keep you in mind for
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah, absolutely.
that's really cool. So then you get over to the role, and tell me a little bit about. Well, tell me a little bit about what you do. Tell me a little bit about Change Healthcare, because I'm not familiar with the company.
Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So we'll keep Change Healthcare on a high level.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Technology company. They do healthcare technology.
Okay.
And honestly, I mean, I've always known kind of what they did. We were a spinoff from McKesson years ago. I think 3 years ago. So I had handled McKesson too. So that's how I got Change Healthcare when I was with Grable. So we both had worked, both of those. I had worked on both of those. So when the changeover came over, it was a natural progression just for me to take those people.
Makes sense.
When I came, with being here, it's definitely been challenging with the COVID thing, learning new items. The manager who had hired me went to another position after that. So it's been a little bit of some learning and challenges. But it's getting over to this position. If that's your desire, then put it on your whiteboard and look at it every morning and know that that's where you're going to be one day.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
I'll give you an example. So I have a sister, my sister. We all have sisters and brothers sometimes, So I have a sister who has been in customer service for years, and I talk to her about relocation. We'll go have lunch or something, and her question to me just a few weeks ago was, "Well, how can I get in on that?" And I was like, "Well, you really don't have a lot of experience." But then I started talking with some of my network people. And there could be some opportunities, some entry level breakthrough into relocation.
Sure.
Maybe there's an associate position or a move management entry level, something like that. So, I just, if that's what you want to do, go do it. And I think the worlds will align if that's really truly where you're supposed to be and want to be.
I love it, and I got a couple of questions for you here. If you've got questions for Brian, put them in the comments here. We got a bunch of people watching on LinkedIn here. Let's see what people's comments are looking like. People are loving the talk about honesty, the straight talk there. Anna Maria, look at that, from Maryland. Jeff Horn, honesty is the best policy. What's up, Jeff? I'm cooking dinner tonight. Let's see here. Stephen Meyer, Americans prefer being lied to. This is a mover, right? I want to just go with Steve Meyer. I love you, man. That is a household goods driver right now. Stephen, are you on the road right now? Let me know. Hopefully not texting and driving. But hey, when you're in the home, man, things are real out there. Those hot summers are super hot. Sandy McKinney, everyone's career goals are the most important. Agree with setting goals and dreaming big. Yeah, Sandy, making it happen too. Look at that. Let's see. Professional people don't want the truth. It's along the lines of everyone's saying they're a straight shooter. That's so great. True, well, the driver the driver gets out there to the house and he's looking at this and he's looking at the documentation. He's looking at the house documentation. And it's like, how did, either somebody's lying to me or somebody's, blind going in these houses, because sometimes they get out there and the situation's different. We get orders sometimes for 30,000 pounds of household goods to show up as 10,000 pounds. We come with an empty truck and we only fill a third of it,
Well, we actually just had that because we had somebody who was going from Chicago to Atlanta and, we looked at the 4-bedroom, 4-bath house and then average and the estimates came in and it was all good. And then they get there and they're like, you got like 10,000 more pounds or something like that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a new job and a new living room, dining room, and bedroom. And yeah, for sure. So let's talk about policies real quick. Cause I want to get into this because it's an area that I don't know enough about.
Yeah.
So Brian, educate me and everybody that's watching, what types of policies do you use and advocate for?
Yeah, so we use one policy now. Now, when I came on board, literally we were in the final weeks of moving over to a Coreflex policy. Mm-hmm. So we had our normal 4 policies for renters, 4 policies for home sales, homeowners, 4 policies for international. We had a business policy, and there was all of this. The manager before me put it all together and got it all together. And she did a great job before we left, just because it kind of set me up. So we use strictly Coreflex. So what I do, the process for that is now, before we do anything and engage the RMC or anyone else, we do a communications call or a benefits call. So I have an intake form that I use that we go through all of the benefits based on what they're doing. If it's an international, I have a list of international benefits. If it's domestic, I have a list of domestic. And then we go through it. And we spend maybe, half hour going through it, talking what the business wants to accomplish, what the employee needs to accomplish, and we bridge that gap. And, we make it what's right for the business, but we make it what's right for the employee at the same time. We talk a lot about duty of care.
Who's on that conversation? Who's on that call?
Usually the business leader who's ever putting that relocation or offering relocation benefits or assignment benefits. So it could be the recruiter. It could be the talent acquisition person. It could be our people solutions business person, or it could be the direct leader or the manager themselves. Sometimes it's all of them. I invite the whole team, and then whoever is able to join, then we go through, and then I get back with my RMC, with my partner, and then they give me a cost estimate, and then I share it with the team then.
Now, is that done in advance of an offer or post offer?
Well, I'm still working through all of that.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about communication. I think, one of the things that we were talking about earlier is, how do we communicate and all the different ways of communication. We're getting better at getting everyone on board, but sometimes offers come in before we've had that discussion. So that's a tough moment of truth.
It's moments of truth. I love it. No, I mean, these are kind of the tactical, I love having these conversations because we go all the way from the strategic down to the tactical, and that's where the rubber meets the road, is in practice. Right. And so I think it's really interesting. This is just it's fascinating to me. And you mentioned going to a Coreflex. And by the way, anybody in the audience that's watching right now, if you've got questions about policies or Coreflex or processes around that, I'd love to hear your questions. Just throw it in the comments there for Brian and me, and we'll get to it.
And even feel free, if you want to IM me afterwards, if you have questions, if you're rolling it about, I can share what I know. I know there's a lot of other people, a heck of a lot more qualified than I am, but I've been living in it for a year now, and I'll be more than happy to shed any kind of, light on any questions or struggles that you guys might be having.
That's awesome. I'm sure people are going to take you up on that. And I have a question on Coreflex. So Coreflex seems like it's really a hot trend right now.
Yeah.
And help me and the folks that are watching this understand, why is Coreflex so hot right now?
I think it's because, I think, in my own personal opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with costs and waste. And let me break that down a little bit. I mean, we know cost, right? So when you're able to offer individual benefits rather than a package of benefits, you can streamline those benefits. Most importantly, because if I have a single person who's getting hired, they're single, maybe they're just out of college, they don't have a lot to move, they're going maybe 2 states over, they don't have to worry about schools, they don't have to worry, it's a different approach to the benefits than it would be for a family of 4, been in the industry for 20 years, been relocated 4 times, So not saying that we would make one policy better for the other, but we would just streamline those benefits to what the person actually needs. And you can ask those questions right in the interviews. If they ask, hey, is there relocation? And we have a takeaway for that for our talent people. If there's a relocation, what are the trigger points for you to ask questions? Oh, well, what would you think you would need for relocation? And then you already have that information up front. So when you have your manager intake call, you've already kind of worked through some of those. I've even gotten on the phone with some of the recruits, some of the candidates, and just kind of said, where are you? What's your plan? What do you have? And then I can bring it back to the manager or the people leader and just say, hey, this is what I'm finding out. See if
are you discussing what benefits they think they need based on usually what they have, like, house, family size, whatever, or is this more of a conversation around what type of benefits do you think you deserve from almost a compensation standpoint? What's the market, or what have they got? What other offers have they got from other companies, let's say? Because I'm really interested in global mobility and relocation's ability to influence talent acquisition and be that tool in the toolkit of talent acquisition.
Yeah. So on that question, so I don't get granular into the benefits. Mm-hmm. I think that sets the employee up in a way, and it doesn't set my business unit up in a way, because if I'm like, oh, well, if you're doing this, we'll take care of this for you and this for you. I haven't really cleared that with the business yet.
Right.
So I'm granular on the benefits. I get more like, tell me about, is anyone traveling with you? What is your timeline? Do you have a house to sell? Are you in a lease? And there's all of that. Then I can gather all of that, bring it back to the manager and say, these would be the benefits I would recommend, and we can kind of go from there.
These are the benefits I'd recommend. And they say, yes, this, not this. Yep. And then you go back and then you actually get an estimate and say, well, that's what this would be.
Yeah.
And it's going to be 20 grand or whatever.
And our RMC partner is really good. They do a lot of our cost estimates for us, but they also built a tool for us that I can go in and do a lot of my own domestic as well. So I can grab a lot of that up front. I can literally be on the call with the manager and go into that and start plugging in some of the data requirements and give them a basic estimate of what those services would be.
Wow. Just out of curiosity, how accurate does that tend to be? What's the variance, would you say, on that? I mean, because you give the business a number like 20 grand and it comes in at 25. I mean, is that an acceptable variance? I'm just curious, and you can tell me if you decline, to answer, that's fine too. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
So it's not about a declination of the answer, but I think more it's, here's the thing. And I think everyone on this panel that have been on your panel for the last 2 years will say the same thing. Every case is different. Yeah. I always say that to the managers and let them know if something comes up outside of this, I will let you know. We'll do an exception. I'll let you know if this becomes more than it needed to be, right. Because I'm the one managing the budget. Once I give that budget to the leader, that's Brian's budget. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because as a person that's gone in the house and fortunately not very often, but it's gone in the house and counted pieces of furniture, to come up with an estimate that's within 110%. I'm always curious about ways that we could streamline processes to be like, man, if I didn't have, people didn't have to go in these houses and count furniture. Some people back, I'm just talking from a household goods standpoint, would, do these drive-by surveys where they count windows and they say, boom, there you go. Cause they,
and they didn't see the 3,000 feet behind them, right? That the house extends back onto a full acre of land.
And there's a barn back there, with a lathe and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for
sure. You know what I'm talking about for sure. So, well, that's really interesting to think about. It's so interesting and so fascinating to understand the way that our clients are thinking and the way that they're doing business and what their needs are, like the thought about budgets, right? Service providers, we don't love putting budgets together, right? We like, writing business and taking care of customers, Yep. But understanding why it's important to do that and to be responsive and build tools and things like that, like you were
Yeah.
describing. I think that's an excellent business case. Let me ask you this question, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Going into, if people out there are watching this and they're saying, I want to kind of take a look at my policy, or maybe they're a service provider who's being asked about policies. I mean, I get questions from clients all the time, right, about policies. What advice would you give corporate folks?
Oh boy. I guess the one advice I would bring is bring other departments into it. Don't try to do it, in a room, or in your own domain with your global mobility people and your immigration people. If you try to do that, we're always going to come up with that same, answer. You start bringing in like departments or some people leaders, maybe past people who have done the relocation, bring them in and say, hey, if we went to this type of policy and we offered you this, this, and this, did you really truly need these other things? So again, I think it's more streamlining. I think personally what pushed the Coreflex discussion is the no tax break to the companies anymore with the household goods move. I have heard that the administration might be looking at that.
I was just on a call today with someone who actually works with people, like with congressional folks.
Yeah.
And, that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, I think is supposed to sunset in 2022.
Right.
Now,
I think you are correct.
Now, does it sunset and just automatically revert to the old tax code? Or is something going to be proposed in its stead?
Yeah.
And or is that even going to get passed if you have, if Congress doesn't agree? So,
Uh-oh. I think we may have lost him. So I'll keep going until he comes back like he did for me. One thing I wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to, and then I'll give you my top 5, is
it happened.
All of us. I kept them going. They were all thanking me and everything. I'm playing.
That's great. That's so great. So anyway, but yeah, it'd be really fascinating to know if there's anything we can do as an industry to kind of have some input, because you're right. Once that happened, it changed everything, and you saw this mass kind of migration to these lump sum policies and these Coreflex and things like that. So help me understand like the way the business looks at it. You were kind of going before I cut you off and went on this tangent, but what were you thinking about the tax implications and the impact to the business and why?
So, here you are. There's companies that do, 10, 15, 20 million dollars in relocation every year, right? And when they're putting those out there, all of a sudden now all of that's gone. Think about that. How much of that was household goods? We'll say 25%. So let's say a company has $2.5 million in household goods. Now you got to gross that up at 65%. That's one company, very, very, very significant impact to the company.
Just rough math, that's like going from $2.5 million to $4 million of spend.
Yeah. And if you could now here's the thing about the lump sum, and I know we're getting close, but here's the thing about the lump sum. You still have to gross it up. Some companies don't. We do. We think it's the duty of care.
You should.
To them.
Right.
So that's a big piece that's always been there. I do give the business the opportunity, they have the choice. But I highly lean towards like I basically do one of these, like you can offer the no tax thing, but I wouldn't recommend it. Right.
Right. Well, yeah, and because you can convince anybody to do anything once, but they're going to get hit with a nasty tax bill, and then they're going to really, it's not going to be.
It's going to really hurt them. Yeah, they're going to have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 due to the IRS because of a $10,000 or $12,000 lump sum. That's
and they're going to be back in your office like WTF, and then they're going to be looking for a new job because they're like, there was that moment of truth.
There is exactly it, Ben. They're going to be looking for a new job. Mobility isn't just about moving people. It's about moving and keeping and making the best experience for that new person that you possibly can, you know?
Yeah. Love it. I love it. This is great, Brian. I love this. And I could talk to you about this stuff forever.
I do like relocation. I do like it. I like real estate. I can talk about it all day long. One thing I did want to mention that some people have seen who follow me on LinkedIn may have seen these. I use Smartsheet for all of my projects now. And literally nothing gets done outside of a Smartsheet. So
what's a Smartsheet? I feel like dumb. I don't know this. What's a Smartsheet?
So it is like Excel on steroids. You can attach documents. You can add notes. It is in real time. It's dynamic. So if I make a change and you're part on the sheet, you see the change real time. Okay. So I mean, I could go on for. I do.
So like Google, is it like Google Sheets but like what's the difference between that and like say Google Sheets?
No, it's not like Google Sheets. It's very. It's really good because it takes away the back and forth multiple communications. So whenever I set up a sheet, and again, I could spend an hour going over it, but look it up. Again, if anyone has any questions about Smartsheet, I'd love to help. And as an FYI, I have my own personal Smartsheet account that I use for my own investments and my own real estate. So
nice.
I'm kind of a nerd. I'm a Smartsheet nerd.
Somebody look that Smartsheets up. Throw a link in the comments there so people can go check it out.
Smartsheet.com. That's all you got. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But it's really good. And but yeah, I'd love to talk about that anytime with people. So
all right, Brian Smith here from Smartsheets. We've got, you know what? I think we got a few minutes left. You want to do a top 5?
Sure.
What you got, Brian?
All right.
Let's see here. Topic today, top 5 movies.
Paul, Paul, you got something for me?
This is great. Top 5 movies. All right, let's do it.
Okay. Number 5, Empire Strikes Back. 100% classic. I love all first 6 Star Wars. I like the other 3 too, but I'm a little older. Empire Strikes Back. There's nothing better than watching a scene of AT-ATs and Luke Skywalker taking him down with his lightsaber.
Dude, my son is obsessed with Lego AT-ATs. He wants a Lego AT-AT so bad. It's like $149.99.
Yes.
It's like real money. This kid he's 6 years old. Every single piece is gray. I don't know how he's going to put it together, but they're impressive.
My son built the Death Star when he was 12 and 13. It was 4,000 pieces or something like that. The whole family went in and bought it for it. It was his one Christmas present. Everyone jumped in and put in $50 and went and bought it for him.
God bless. That's awesome. All right, let's see. Number 4.
Number 4, Independence Day. We will not go quiet into the night.
Yes.
Right?
Love it. Love it. I'm sensing a theme here about these space epics.
I like action movies, yeah.
I love it.
Number 3, I Am Legend. So huge fan of I can't think of his name.
Will Smith.
Will Smith. Thank you. Got the last.
I was like, I got this movie right. I'm thinking, is that Will Smith?
So I Am Legend. I love zombies. I've got the zombie apocalypse safety kit in case anything breaks out. I've got that stuck right over in the corner there for me to get a run on.
I love it. My 3-year-old is obsessed with zombies. I don't know why. Crazy. My 3-year-old, I know he is crazy. He's obsessed with zombies. He's obsessed with anything Halloween. He's only been around 3 years. He's only been through like 2 Halloweens he remembers. I don't know why he's obsessed with it. Yolanda loves it. She's like, you love Will Smith.
I do love Will Smith.
That's
could probably, and his movies could all make my top 5 easily. He's done.
That's what we should have. Top 5 Will Smith.
Every movie he's done is spot on. He's good, and so.
All right. Well, I've got a moment of truth for you. I've never seen I Am Legend.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I got to give you something, Ben. I know we're going to take up a little time, but there's 2 versions. you got to watch the first version first. So before you do, there's 2 versions and they have separate endings. You need to reach out to me. I would even accept a text at 11 o'clock at night to make sure you watch the right one first.
How do you know what the different versions are?
So do you have like Hulu or Amazon or something like that?
Yeah,
so
sure.
It'll say revised version or something like that. So
okay. And revised is the second version. So I need the not revised.
Yeah, you don't want the alternative ending. You want the original. So.
Okay. All right. This is now I'm intrigued. I'm automatically in on this. This is great.
So let me ask you, do you get scared easily?
Yes.
This one will scare the living hell out of you, Ben.
I don't like scary movies, Brian.
Well, then you better not watch it.
Oh my gosh.
It's not like The Walking Dead by any means. It's pretty truthful if you think about it. You may get your zombie apocalypse kit after.
Oh my gosh. You're going to freak me out, dude. Oh man, look at this. Aaron's like, I'm very intrigued. see, I'm very intrigued. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Number 2.
Ford versus Ferrari. So I'm a huge car guy. My dream car is a 71 Chevelle, red with the black pinstripe down the top, 454, 4 on the floor. Let's do it.
Love it. This was
Ford
a good movie.
Versus Ferrari. And here's the thing. My brother turned me onto that movie just this year, and I watched it twice in one day because I loved it so much.
Wow. And that was Matt Damon, Christian Bale, I want to say.
Yep.
Yeah, really good.
Great story. Really
good. Listen, Aaron's got some new ideas for giveaways at ERC. She's going to be giving away zombie kits from your local RMC.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Aaron.
I got some things I can put in there too. I'll give you some examples.
That's fantastic. This would have been a good top 5 also. Top 5 things to have in your zombie apocalypse kit.
And then number 1, I think this is everybody's Shawshank Redemption. This is the Saturday afternoon USA. Kick it on. Oh, Shawshank. Oh, it's the weekend marathon back to back. Okay. It doesn't matter if I come in the middle. I can look at it. I can watch the other half at the beginning.
I love it. No, you're right. I was literally sitting around with somebody and I was saying, we were playing a game. Name a movie that was better than the book. Because everybody says, I read the book and the book was better. I mean, everybody says 99% of the time. And I think Shawshank Redemption, I think Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which was a short story by Stephen King, I think in like his 4 seasons anthology or whatever, was actually better. Because, and we came up with the reason that books are usually better than movies is they have more details.
Yes.
But because it was a short story, Shawshank was a long movie. Actually, Shawshank has probably a little more character development and detail than the actual book does.
Yeah, and because it was a shorter story. If I remember, he wrote that as Bachman, right? Richard Bachman.
Yes, you're right.
So he wrote that as Richard Bachman, and it was 4 stories. I think the total book was 300 pages with those 4 stories. Yeah.
Not very big. Yeah, not very big at all.
So, yeah, I always love Shawshank. I just think that is, I mean, who doesn't want to root for the guy that got put in prison for 20 years, that didn't do it, right? I mean, what a root for. I mean, I love Rudy, and all that, and I love, all of those kinds of movies, but yeah, definitely.
Well, and then you got Tim Robbins,
yeah,
and then Morgan Freeman.
Oh,
I mean, Morgan Freeman, come on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good list there. Shawshank is definitely in my top 5 as well. Brian, this has been so much fun, and everybody that stopped by today and joined the conversation. That's so awesome. The show it wouldn't be here without you all. So thank you all so much for being here and sharing this moment with us. Brian, are there any final thoughts you want to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, I'm very pleased to have been here today. I was a little nervous coming in and because I didn't know what to expect, but you sure did make it a lot easier, Ben. I know we talked early on that we were going to switch the show and make it more the Ben show. So next time you want to do that, I'll be the host and you can be the guest. All right.
I love it.
I'll let them set that up.
That would be a blast. That would be so fantastic. Thank you so much, Brian.
You too,
and
Ben.
and hopefully I see you in Chicago in October.
Yeah, we're actually going through that. I'm going through my GMS as we speak, so I'm going to be wrapping that up. And then, yes, I live in Chicago, so I can expect that I'll be down at least, if not all 3 days, at least 1 or 2 of those 3 days.
Well, we're going to be throwing some parties down there, maybe at Redhead Piano Bar, maybe.
Oh boy,
yeah.
Oh boy,
good times. Yeah,
I know Chicago. I love my city.
You know it. All right, everybody. Okay. Hey, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks to everybody who's watching today. I appreciate you so much. Next week, I'm going to do a teaser. Brian, we haven't done this. I'm going to do 4 shows from the road next week.
All right.
Do a different state every day. I'm going to tease this. We got Jack Jampel in Jersey on Monday.
Sorry, Jack, I didn't mean anything about the Jersey remark.
We're going to unpack that. We're going to talk about Jersey because I also have opinions, okay? We got Jack Jampel in Jersey. We've got Tim Quirk, who works on the show here from Road Sense, also in Rochester. Shout out to my buddy Tim. I see you backstage. We're going to do one with him, maybe some chicken wings and some beer, since Western New York is the home of the chicken wing. We're going to do Wednesday at Ayers with Jolene Laufer there in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. We're going to do, I'm probably going to do Thursday, we're going to do with Sandy McKinney, but I'm going to be broadcasting from the E.E. Ward offices in Columbus, Ohio. And then Friday, we're going to be doing Ellis Porter in Detroit in Michigan on site. So I'm going to be in 5 states in 5 days. I don't know what's going to happen.
Are you driving or flying?
I'm driving.
Oh boy, I've done those drives.
Yeah, so we're going on tour. So tune in. It's going to be fantastic. Brian, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure today.
Thank you very much.